Welcome to Tampa Home Talk with your host, native Tampa real estate girl, Katrina Madewell, a full-time, passionate, out-of-the-box thinker, love for home ownership kind of realtor with over 21 years of combined mortgage and real estate experience. Tune in every week at this time for expert advice on everything you need to know about home ownership, finance, maintaining great credit, building wealth, and making your everyday life better, and how you can be financially successful today and tomorrow. Remember, love where you live or let Katrina fix it. Now, here's your host of Tampa Home Talk, Katrina Madewell.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. You can catch us here on Tampa Home Talk every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. Really excited to have some fantastic guests in studio with me today. We're going to be talking all about hurricane and storm preparedness and some of the things that you can do to help make your home and yourself ready for the storm season, because we'll be in storm season in June 1st, so it's right around the corner. And if you miss any part of today's show or you don't get to catch it in its entirety, feel free to check us out on the web at tampahometalk.com and also on our podcast at Tampa Home Talk. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon for Tampa Home Talk.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
We have Brian Johns with Trinicon, and we also have Jesse Otaza with Rollshield. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Thank you. And it's interesting because your businesses relate very much to each other, but I would say that Jesse probably is a little bit more like what are we going to do the preventive maintenance type of stuff, which I know homeowners aren't always good about, but we try to help them get geared up and ready so that they're, the small problems, as you know, turn into big problems later if they're not taken care of. So, Brian, you do a lot of things like after the fact. So after the storm rolls in, after the damage has occurred, you guys kind of come in and help clean up the mess, right? That's the majority of your business?
I would say that's the vast majority of what we do. It depends on the property type. We do pre-disaster planning as well, but for larger communities primarily.
So for the fun of things, we'll start our show off this afternoon talking about some of the things you can do to prepare your home to have it ready for storm season. And then if you're catching this show at a later date when storm season has already rolled in and you perhaps didn't do some of the things that Jesse's going to discuss with you, then you might need to call Brian to do a little bit of cleanup. And once you're restored, we can go back to Jesse, right? So let's start this afternoon with just talking about some of the different types, because it's really fascinating, Jesse, when we were talking before the show about some of the different types of protection and barriers, and it's amazing that there's so many different things you can do to protect your home and your belongings and all of those things against storms and hurricanes. I mean, it's, you're going to have something anywhere you live, is what I say. Here we get this beautiful, awesome, warm, tropical, like year-round climate, but, we have some stuff that comes with that, and that's hurricanes and storms.
Well, we could be dealing with a lot of snow and cold, so I think we have the best of both worlds.
Earthquakes, absolutely. We definitely have the best. So it's one of the things, if you've lived here in Tampa your whole life like me, or you've experienced any type of hurricane or storm seasons, you get the fact that you have to prepare yourself and get ready. And, my husband works for stormwater, so I'm usually home alone with 3 kids. So I totally have to be prepared when a storm hits. But let's talk about who your company is, what you do, how long you've been around, and just dive in a little bit. So,
okay. Well, I'll start with the basics. We're Rollshield, and we're a company located in Clearwater. We specialize in hurricane protection, but we do many forms of hurricane protection, as well as windows and security screens, hurricane screens. It's very confusing for the most part, Katrina, because there's so many options. So that a lot of times the consumer really doesn't know which way to go, and that's what we try to help them with, try to find what their needs are and try to put them into the product that not only fits their needs, but also fits their budget. Obviously most people are aware of roll-down shutters, that they've been around for a very long time, and it's an obvious solution, to the hurricane threat. But, they're also a little more expensive. So
Jesse, for the sake of the show today, let's pick a couple of examples. Mm-hmm. So we'll pick out a couple property types, maybe different years they were built and that kind of type of stuff, and we'll use that for our scenario.
Okay.
Does that sound fair enough?
That sounds fair enough. And I'll start with the very basics because I think most of us would know that a lot of the homes here in Florida are quite old, particularly in this area. So window replacement is quite common. But that's also a form of hurricane protection, as windows today in Pinellas County have to be impact resistant. So if you're going to replace your windows for a number of reasons, energy, looks, convenience, you might as well go to the next level and replace it with an impact window because that's what the law requires anyway.
So let's say we have a house built in the 1950s. Let's just say we're built in 1955. We got a standard little 3-bedroom, 2-bath, ranch-style house. That's a lot of the homes that you see here in Pinellas County. And let's say the windows in that home are original, and no one's ever changed them, replaced them. They haven't even thought about any type of hurricane preparation or changing the windows or anything until they're listening to Tampa Home Talk today. So what would you say to that person that has a home built in 1955 with original windows? Like, what are some of the things they could expect, like having some of the products you offer versus not, and then we'll go into what some of those products are.
Well, staying along the lines of windows, what they could expect is the window that actually opens and closes.
Right.
As most of the old ones have a little difficulty in that area. They could expect an energy savings from the standpoint of getting a product that actually keeps their home cooler and reduces their power bill. And they can expect, security and impact protection. It's quite a leap from a house that was built in 1955 with old jalousie windows to what's available today. It's like riding a mule versus a jet aircraft. There's that much difference. I know that's a huge comparison or a wide gap between, but the windows today are really excellent. The quality, they're built to last, and they provide a lot of benefits to the homeowner. Not everyone buys them for the same reason, but you can do a lot of things. In other words, you can get a lot of advantages or upgrades by just making that one simple change.
And I think it's interesting because, especially here in Pinellas County compared to some of the other counties that Tantalk serves, so for example, Pasco and Hillsborough County, you may have a home built in the 50s that has the jalousie windows, and you may have a home built in the 50s that doesn't have jalousie windows, but those windows still are not energy efficient at all. They're not impact resistant at all. So the reality of it is, when storm season kicks up and debris starts flying and the neighbors' patio furniture by their pool didn't get put away, it's going to pick that stuff up and swirl it around, and it's going to land where it lands.
Absolutely, and that's the thing most homeowners need to think about is what are they going to get? What is the benefit? And we always ask homeowners, what are they trying to achieve? We try to guide them, but more importantly, with their input as to what they want to get out of the product. So while there's many forms of impact or hurricane protection, most certainly windows is a good starting point, and then from there I'm
going to even back you up a little bit further, and Brian, I'm sure you can chime in on this too. I would say, and you guys feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but the number one thing that someone could do to prepare themselves and protect their home in the event of a hurricane is to pick everything up that's outside, that's loose. Put it away, secure it down, right? Would you say that's the best place to start? What are some of the things that you guys see, for example, just on that topic?
Well, let me expand upon also the added benefit in the window system. Not only do you have the hurricane protection, but you also, if you go to an insulated panel, you're removing the aspect of you reaching dew point on the interior of the environment as well. So you have a single pane window with an aluminum frame, and you run into high levels of temperature differential from interior to exterior. That's when we commonly will see fungal growth, because we're reaching dew point around the
Let's
interior
back
window.
up and just explain that a little bit and break it down into the most layman of terms, because I like everyone listening to Tampa Home Talk to understand exactly what you're saying. And I'm following you being in the business, but I want to make sure that the person listening can too.
Okay, layman's. Your single pane window, because you will have temperature differentials, okay, hot and cold, okay, big swings between the interior and exterior. You will reach dew point on the interior. You'll have water on the inside.
What you explained real quick when we were discussing before the show, you have a house built, in the 50s, like we're talking about, that doesn't have those low E or double pane insulated windows. Mm-hmm. And in your house, the sun sets in the west, and it's coming in that back porch or the back area where those windows are. You're going to feel that heat. Absolutely. Huge, as opposed to the new windows that you're talking about.
Right.
So going back into the dew.
Yeah, what Brian's talking about is very common. Most people that have old homes with old windows will see the moisture on the inside of the house. And so that moisture in turn turns to mold, which is, I believe, is what we're talking about here.
And so people are thinking, that's just humidity? Like what kind of, when you're talking to a consumer about this, what type of a response do you get? Like what do they think that is? Or are they asking you to find out what it is?
Well, most often, I do a lot of indoor environmental work as well. We're obviously a general contracting company. I'm a water expert, et cetera. But the point is we run into fungal issues, and most of the time they're around windows. And
yes.
People don't understand, maybe my window's leaking. But no, actually your window is reaching dew point. Okay, and the moisture from the surface on your window frame is what's wicking into your drywall.
So let's talk about that. We have an old window that's now allowed this dew to come in, that's now formed moisture that is now turned into mold. And that's what I meant by the small problems that turn into the big problems, right?
Sure.
So what does that look like compared to someone that takes care of that right away when they see the dew, compared to now they have this black mold, they're scrubbing off with bleach or whatever they're doing? Like, what's the difference in price for something like that?
Well, a couple things. One, kind of stay on track here. It was an added benefit to the window above and beyond the impact rating, but it obviously does turn into a bigger problem, which can be eliminated if a replacement of that window system takes place. But to get back to the first rabbit that we chased, getting the materials that could become missiles on the exterior of the property, yes, I would agree with you, would be the most important thing to do on the front end and get those on the interior.
So, since you guys do a lot of disaster restoration and you're kind of in the field, so to speak, seeing these things after the storms have hit, what are some of the things that, I've lived here my whole life, so I know some of the stuff that flies around, but what are some of the things that you guys see all the time that are just laying in the yard that obviously weren't there before?
Well, it can be many things. Lawn furniture is the most common item that you see out there, to kids' toys. So and that's quite frequently what people will do is I'm sure is they'll throw their stuff in their pool, which is a partial solution, in order to get rid of the debris. But anything can be a flying object. It could be like I said, a small child's toy, and we've all seen the pictures of the 2x4 going through the palm tree. So once the wind will pick up anything, and it will become a missile. And of course, that leads to the damage that coincides with that.
Very good point. So trees as well, tree branches, that's a huge part of hurricane preparedness and being prepared for the storm season. Make sure all of your trees and all of your things are trimmed not only away from the house, but any low, loose, dead type stuff that can easily be snapped off and turned into a missile, which is a perfect analogy, is certainly something to think about. So you're listening to Tampa Home Talk. In studio today, we have Brian Johns with Trinicon and Jesse Otaza with Rollshield, and we are talking all about hurricane preparedness and the storm season. It's going to be right around the corner on June 1st. When we come back in just a minute, we're going to get into some of the different products and solutions that we can give you for things to help protect those windows and prepare you a little bit further for storm season. This is your host, Katrina Maidwell. We'll be back in just a minute for Tampa Home Talk. Welcome back. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk, and this is your host, Katrina Maidwell, on the Real Estate Radio Network. In studio today, we have Brian Johns with Trinicon, and we also have Jesse Otaza with Rollshield. And our topic for today's show is going to be storm and hurricane preparedness, because our hurricane and storm season's right around the corner, June 1st. In the first segment, we talked a little bit about some of the things that you can do that are the most basic things that you can do on your own to prepare your home from damage and your car from damage and a lot of things from damage before the storm actually hits. So now we're going to dive into a little bit deeper and get into more of like the preventative maintenance type stuff and protection for your home and things that will take it just a step further, so that if those things are flying around because your neighbor left them out, it'll give your home some additional protection from those things. So Jesse, do you want to talk about a couple of the products, and we can start maybe from the smaller side on up, because I know it can get very expensive. And you summed it up very nicely, I would say, when you said the easier the product is to use. Like the less effort, the more expensive it is. That's kind of like how most things are.
Well, that's true. And I started with windows because that's a very basic item that most homeowners can relate to. And not necessarily thinking about impact protection, but rather they go hand in hand. But in reality, there's a lot more choices. And it really depends on your pocketbook and your willingness to go through the motions. Because obviously, most people are familiar with storm panels. That's the least expensive of the product lines to protect your windows. But the storm panels, there's a couple of drawbacks to the storm panels. Pricing is the positive. The negative is that they have to be installed, and sometimes you have to climb on ladders. They're very heavy. There's storage issues with panels. So again, that is definitely the least expensive, but that requires the most amount of work, and there are some drawbacks.
And what type of material is that product made out of?
Well, typically aluminum, but there's other options like Lexan, clear see-through products,
which is a plastic type product.
Which is it's a product that you see windshields made out of, like bulletproof, it's like in the convenience stores. They're very strong and can certainly they can meet the impact requirements of the missile test. But there are some drawbacks, and I really should mention these because I think it's very fair that homeowners need to understand is that once you put these panels up, if you plan on staying in your home, okay, that can be a problem because there's no ventilation. God forbid there should be a fire or a problem in the home. You still have to get out of the home. So it's really, the panels are really intended to be left, put on, and then you leave your house. And that's really the only way they should be utilized. Because again, once you're inside the home, God forbid something happens, you do have no way of getting out. So I want to point from a safety standpoint, that's the main purpose, is to put them up and leave. Okay, then from that point on, you have a lot of other choices.
I want to pause you real quick because I want Brian to chime in on this as well, because I know part of your business and some of the things you do over there at Trinicon is actually put those things up, right? Like the panels and so forth for clients that are either out of the area, maybe they're snowbirds, or you said you work with different condo communities.
We do. We work with many condo communities throughout Florida. We're in 4 different locations here: Orlando, Fort Myers, and Boca Raton. So we do that for condo communities, and then we have a sister company called Trinicon that provides that service for people that are partially living in Florida, here up north, et cetera, the snowbirds, classically, as we would define them. So, yeah, we do provide that service.
So that is physically putting up the panels, and what else do you do that relates to that as far as preparation?
Well, we ran into a situation. We do a great deal of insurance restoration work. So we work with the insurance carriers as a whole and soup to nuts in these types of losses and recurring daily losses. So we got to the point where we do so much condo work that people are out of town that we said, well, let's provide a service for the people that are out of town. And it's kind of expanded into board ups. Originally, it was in inspections of units to satisfy insurance requirements within their policies and 14-day guidelines.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of services that come into play, and one of them is boarding up. It even ranges to starting your car.
Okay. So the board up, the takedown, obviously, after the storm. If someone's not here, they're likely not going to come all the way back to Florida to do that.
No.
And I imagine you check on the property, too, do sort of an inspection to make sure there's no damage. And
we do, yeah.
And so what are some of the other things that those are the most basic, but I know they get very, very advanced from there. There's a lot of options out there, way more than I thought.
Yeah, then there is, and again, it really depends on your pocketbook and your willingness to do the work associated with putting up the product. Most people are familiar with roll downs and accordion shutters, but those are again, the roll downs are the most expensive. Accordion shutters come down, and then there's other type of devices that can be utilized for hurricane protection. For example, we sell a product called CrimSafe. CrimSafe is made. It looks like a screen, like you would have this in your screen door, like a typical screen door. However,
it's very interesting. I'm going to hold this up because we also video our shows here at Tampa Home Talk. So if you have a chance to look at this is amazing. It does look like a screen, and you literally I'm bending that, and it's not flimsy like a screen, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I'm trying to describe this for the person listening.
Yeah, this is a product actually that was developed for two reasons: hurricane protection, as well as security. And today security is a big factor with most homeowners because you hear about all the burglaries and all the problems that you have even in great subdivisions. So the beauty of this particular product is that you can actually do two things at once. You can provide the security because you cannot get through this product. Let's say you cover your front door by putting a screen door made with this material, and you can take a baseball bat to this all day long and you'll wear yourself out. You won't be able to get through it. You can take any obstacle for the most part. You can, the 300-pound person can't smash into it. So there's a lot of advantages to, people. A lot of people will buy this product and they'll actually leave their front and back door open for ventilation, and they don't have to worry about security. So
are those the advantages and difference for something like this compared to the panels that we were speaking about a minute ago?
Right. This can provide the same level of protection from the standpoint of impact. Okay, and it meets all the South Florida impact code requirements. So yes, I can do that. But this product is also meant for security purposes. So it's a totally different product than what we've been talking about so far. And it's a little pricey. I have to be quite frank with you. But but again, what the benefit that you get out of it is a lot of security, because if you have this all throughout your house, you don't have to worry about people coming into your house in the middle of the night or breaking in. First of all, once someone tries to pry this with a crowbar or whatever, they're not going to budge this material or even the framing which is built in, because the frame is also a key component of this.
So can we talk about how those things actually go on the home? Like, describe how they fit on and in the windows. How do they fit on and in the doors, sliding glass doors, front doors, that type of stuff?
Well, in the case of a front security screen door, it just replaces that, except we actually frame it out with the proper materials so it can meet the impact codes or the security codes. So it doesn't look any different than what you currently have, other than it's a beefier door.
And it's going to open and close just like a regular screen door.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And those doors actually have the three-mechanism locking system. So if you were to take a crowbar and try to pry the corner of the top or the bottom, you would not be able to do so. So there's more security features than just the screen itself, the way the door is constructed, the materials. And the same thing with your windows. It fits on the outside, it's framed in, and it's attached. It's very similar to a hurricane installation from the standpoint of the materials that have to be used, what they're attached to, because the fact of the matter is, and not to get too much into the installation process of it, but the hurricane protection is only as good as the installation.
Makes sense.
If it's not installed properly, if it isn't installed with the correct materials, then the product will fail or can fail very easily, and then you have no protection.
So, and then how does it work? So when they're on the windows, I think you said they're on, right? You can't take them off. But the windows do open and close still. Well,
yeah, it doesn't impact the movement of your windows, okay? Windows can still go up and down. However, you will not be able to get in or out. And this is why we have this. One of the windows in the bedroom will have an egress function, meaning that there's a bar that you press so you can open in case of a fire or need to get out in an emergency. So they're perfectly safe. Your children can operate them. There's nothing to them, just a matter of pressing a bar, as I said. But now, by putting these all the way around, you have full security. And also, I mention one other thing, too, if I could, is that you don't have full protection unless all your openings are covered. And this is perhaps the average homeowner doesn't always understand that. They try, I want to do the front of the house, I want to do the back of the house because I'm exposed to the water in that area. But in the scheme of things, again, they don't have the full protection unless all their openings. And this doesn't just apply to this CrimSafe product. It applies to any hurricane product, whether it be a panel or a roll down.
Gotcha. And so CrimSafe is a product that you're talking about. And so can you describe how that would also fit on a sliding glass door? Because I think a lot of people have those in Florida, including myself. Well,
it has a tracking system similar to your sliding glass door, so the panels actually move. So you just move the panel to one side or the other, just like you would your sliding glass door. So it's very see. The thing is that there's a perception, that this doesn't work any different than anything else that you have. It's very simple for the most part. When you drive by a house, you wouldn't even know they're on, because it just blends in with the structure, and the framing can come in different colors depending on what you need for your particular home. So it just blends in with your home and your exterior.
So again, he's talking about CrimSafe. Thank you. Jesse Otaza. Thank you. And it looks kind of like a screen, very, very hard, very dense. And so what are some of the other products that you offer? Like, what's another option that a homeowner could do if they wanted to protect their home against storm damage and intrusion from objects that become missiles.
Yeah. Well, there's also less expensive screen options. Okay, they're roll down screen options, not having the security protection that this have, but they also provide the hurricane protection. So it's a different type of screen operation, almost always motorized, but the smaller ones can be manual as well. And then probably the product that most people are not familiar with, and this is something we discussed, during earlier, is a the best way to describe it is it's fabric. Okay, it's the easiest way to go with it.
Which that was interesting that you mentioned that, because I had no idea that there was even a fabric type product that could be used for a storm protection.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, what's really interesting is that this fabric is not only used for hurricane protection, but a lot of people in Gulf communities actually use it to enclose, the front of their carports, for example.
Oh my gosh, that's so smart! So the golf balls don't ping. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, and that product is again a little more expensive than the panels, and it does require the manual installation process that I described earlier, where you still have to go out there and you have to put them together. But it's a fairly clean look. It's to me it looks better than the panels because it comes in different colors as well, and it can blend in with your house color. And
so, what is the look of that? If you're describing it to someone listening.
Well, that's a good question. I would say it would be. I hate to use the word just imagine a piece of material like someone who sews, uses a large panel of sewing material, and it's a cloth that completely spreads out from one end to the other.
Like a strong canvas or something.
A strong canvas probably is the best, a much better way to describe it, that would snap in place. And there's different type of snapping mechanisms, but for the most part, they're all very simple. And storage is fairly simple too, because it's not heavy. The average homeowner can easily, not only pick this up but install it, but it takes a lot less room for storage as well, because it is cloth and it bends, it folds, easy to handle.
Gotcha. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk, and this is your host, Katrina Madewell. You were just listening to Jesse Otaza, and we also have in studio with us Brian Johns. He's with Trinicon, and we're going to have him chime into a little bit more of the details on some of the things that happen after the fact when a storm has already hit your home, and now you have to call a company in like Trinicon to clean it up. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk on the Real Estate Radio Network. We'll be here every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m., but we'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk, and this is your host, Katrina Madewell, with Charles Rettenberg Realty on the Real Estate Radio Network. Thank you so much for joining us today. You can find us here on Tan Talk 1340, 1350, and 1400 every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. And you can also catch us across the web at tampahometalk.com, also on Facebook and Twitter. And all of our shows are available via a podcast. So if you've missed any part of today's show regarding hurricane preparedness and the things you need to do to prepare for a storm, as well as some of the things that happen in the aftermath, which we're going to get into in the next part of the show, feel free to catch the show on a podcast in its entirety. So we have Jesse Otaza, which took a lot of the first part of the show, and we talked a lot about many of the options that Rollshield has with regards to preparing and safing up your home so that it keeps from intrusion and damage and that type of stuff. And then I'm going to bring you guys to the other end of the spectrum, which is for Brian Johns with Trinicon. And you guys deal with a lot more of the, oh boy, now we have been hit by a storm. We have water damage. We have missile damage from the flying objects. We have whatever it is. And you guys work closely with the insurance company. And it's interesting because during our meeting, we talked a lot about some of the differences in the companies out there. And I definitely hope that you will share that on today's show at Tampa Home Talk, but also just talk about some of the different things that you guys see.
Absolutely. And we, on the front end, there's all kinds of different resources out there as far as planning tips, et cetera, whether that's through the newspaper or online, whether it's taking pictures of your home or backing up your computers and all of those fun little things, having enough water on hand and such. I think that there's a vast amount of resources out there for us to utilize. I think that some of the key points that I'd like to take this time to hit on are things that we really don't talk about. And one thing, and I'll go through a few here, is vetting the companies that potentially would be coming out to your home. And you could do that in a couple different ways. One, you could call your claims department with your current insurance carrier, and you can ask them, well, do you have a plan in place that you're going to be sending various companies out to my home in the event of a storm? And if they do have a plan, some do, some don't. If they do, then finding out who those companies are and finding out a little bit about those companies. And that's a level of protection. Secondly,
it's interesting that you bring that up, and I just want to chime in on that a little bit because, like you say, you can get the list, right? The list that everybody has, the news stations blast out every year. You can find it probably on 250,000 blogs across the country. We all know we need to have water, backup food, canned good items, all this stuff. But what about having a plan just in case something does happen? And your questions are imperative. And I never even thought to ask my own insurance company about that. So now that my homeowner's insurance is actually up for renewal in June, it's some of the questions I'm going to be asking them.
Well, the whole point is what ultimately is going to hurt you. And we have to look at it from that perspective. Okay, is your policy language going to hurt you? All right, is it a replacement cost policy or is it a depreciated policy? Things such as that, where in the event of a storm, you've done the due diligence on the front end to understand how you're protected, what company is protecting you, what company may be responding to your home, and that's the type of information that you really need. I think it's fabulous on the front end to put in the various items that are available through Jesse to protect your home. Those are fantastic things to do on the front end, and you should. On the flip side of that, when you're in the situation of a storm came through and you have no idea who's coming out to your house, you don't know if they're licensed, you don't know if what's in their contract, and then you run into problems. And as we spoke previously, one of the big things in my industry, unfortunately, becomes an assignment of benefits.
And if you're listening to Tampa Home Talk right now, I'm going to have you just repeat that because what you're going to say is very, very important. We talked about it before the show, and I think it's a key point. And sometimes people that listen to talk radio in the car listen to bits and pieces, but this part is super important. So, assignment of benefits.
Here's the point. Okay, with anyone that is in business, you should conduct yourself first and foremost with integrity, period, or you shouldn't be in business. Okay, now the point in the assignment of benefits clauses in the contract comes down to this. You, in essence, sign over your authority within a loss that occurs on your property to another company. Now, there are companies in the industry that utilize that language to take advantage of the language and remove you from the negotiations that take place between you and your insurance company. Okay, so what happens there is you sign that contract. You've assigned your benefits over. You have nothing to say about it at this point. They can choose to write any scope of work to whatever degree monetarily they want to. And then who's on the hook at the end for it? You are. They don't tell you that on the front end, whether it's someone paying a plumber on a water damage on Tuesday or someone chasing a fire on Monday night and they show up at your house. The same language is in the contract as you'll see in a hurricane. And what happens then is you're on the hook at the end. So these are the things, some of the things that we need to be aware of. What are the things that are going to hurt us in these situations?
It's interesting because I had never heard the term, like everyone's heard ambulance chasers, I think, right? At some point, like the attorneys that chase the ambulance down the road. But you also mentioned the term fire chasers, which was interesting because these are the people that you're speaking about, which are the ones that go out and try to just swoop up, get you at a vulnerable point in time, and really just assign your rights. I mean, you might as well sign a power of attorney over to them because essentially the language in these contracts are doing just that.
Well, that's the whole point with conducting yourself with integrity. Are you a great salesman or do you run a great company of integrity? Okay, that's the difference. You can have people that show up, you give them the event after a hurricane occurs, and they can come up and they can be a great salesperson. Okay, but that doesn't mean that they care about your property. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. Do they care about you? Do they care about your family and your property?
So, Brian, let's say, hurricane season has approached and, I'm home alone with my kids and my neighbors didn't put their stuff away and it flew through my front windows and my back sliders. And now I have just this mess in my house. It's definitely something that's well beyond my high deductible. And now I have to call my insurance company to deal with the damages that have occurred. So what's one of the number one things I should look for and ask? And what are some of the things that I should be aware of?
If it's in the company that you're calling.
Period. I mean, you're mentioning someone showing up at my door because they see the damage. Maybe I had a chair or a tree or whatever come through my front glass doors, and they can clearly see that I'm going to have to make an insurance claim.
Like I said, what's in their contract? Okay, and most importantly, it's always the verbiage that's in there on the front end. Okay, so how are you protected as a consumer? What type of certifications and what type of licensing do they have in place? Are they a company that is properly licensed? And that's why on the front end of this, if people would take the time to not only protect their homes and properties from missiles, okay, but also protect yourself by vetting companies on the front end to know who you're dealing with, whether it's Tuesday with a water damage and you're not just relying on some pretty commercial that's on television and you don't know who you're really calling, but vet the company that you know on the front end and find out a little bit about them so you know who you're calling in the event of a disaster.
So give yourself the chance to do some due diligence is what I'm hearing. Like give yourself the chance to have an attorney review a contract if, someone's pushing that in front of your face. And I think, you have to follow your common sense, like in your gut feeling and your instinct in your stomach. And if someone's out there and they're approaching you, and you mentioned too, the firemen actually like making an offer on your house. And I thought, oh my gosh, really? Like these are the people that are public service providers that are paid to put out the fires. And it's interesting. So I think, I wouldn't sign anything with anybody. And the first person you should call should be your insurance agent. And it should be somebody that you trust and that you have a relationship with that can answer all your questions.
Yeah, honestly.
And when I ask questions about anything, and my scope obviously is real estate. It's not disaster restoration. It's not, storm preparedness. That's why I brought you guys in today. But I know contracts and I know contract laws and I know what that stuff says within the Florida statute. But when it comes to like insurance and some of those other lines that I'm not licensed for, I really don't. I mean, I know what I know from the business, but it's not near as much as the insurance person knows. So I usually ask them and say, hey, explain this to me. Like, what if? Let's play what if this happened, then what does my policy say is going to happen next? And that's probably a very good way to approach that, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
So you're listening to Tampa Home Talk, and we have to take a very quick break here, but we are going to be back in just a minute with Jesse Otaza with Rollshield and Brian Johns with Trinicon. We're going to talk a little bit further about some of the things you need to know in the aftermath of a storm. And if you missed any part of today's show on Tampa Home Talk, don't forget to catch it on our website at tampahometalk.com. And we're also available via a podcast. We'll be back in just a minute. Ask me about an inside secret to save several hundreds of dollars on your annual homeowner's insurance premium. Text the word WIND, W-I-N-D, to 813-377-2775. Again, 813-377-2775.
I'm John Rakowski, the broker with Charles Ruttenberg Realty. If you are a real estate agent and want to keep more of your hard-earned commission, call me today at 727-538-9200 extension 2. This call will change your real estate career.
Hi, this is Melissa Rogers, owner of SEC Inspection Services. We're so glad that you're listening today, that we're offering you a special deal. If you're purchasing a home, you can have $50 off your full home inspection. And if you're already a client of ours, we're offering 10% off of any other service that we offer. Just give us a call at 727-786-4663 or visit us on the web at seциnspection.com.
And you are listening to Tampa Home Talk. This is your host, Katrina Madewell. Thank you so much for coming back for the last part of our show today. You can catch us here on 1340, 1350, and 1400 every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. And we're also across the web, streaming via Tan Talk 1340 and available via podcast after the show. During the break, we had an excellent conversation, and sometimes I wish we could just continue to air during the break because the conversations get so awesome. But if you guys will pick up where we left off and chime into how we're talking over the break, Jesse?
Okay, well, one of the things that Brian mentioned that is crucial, in my opinion, is doing the research ahead of time. And so you're prepared when the time comes. When a disaster hits, not only will you'll not be able to get through on the phone because everyone else will be doing the same thing, but you won't be thinking properly. You're in a distress mode. You're trying to take care of a major problem. Who knows what your state of frame of mind is at that point in time? So that's definitely the wrong time to try to find out what your options are.
Going back to the tree through my front door, I'm there by myself with 3 kids. Water's coming in. I'm trying to keep the dogs from going out. I can imagine what that looks and feels like.
Well, I've had 5 feet of water in my house, so I know what it's like during Helena, what it's like to have a disaster hit your house when you weren't expecting it. and I can tell you it's very stressful. And at that point in time, for the services that Brian provides was not really an option. But I wish there would have been, and I wish I would have done the homework ahead of time because it would have made my life much simpler.
Oh, I bet. I'd love to hear that from the horse's mouth and people that have actually lived through that. And so one of the things you mentioned during the break, Brian, was having a disaster plan. And you have a lot of these big condo communities have it, but
let me just Let me touch on one quick thing with what Jesse said.
Please do.
And here we'll reiterate: not thinking clearly. When we were talking earlier in the last segment about fire chasing, why do you think there's 6 to 10 people standing at your front door while your house is burning, while the fire department's putting it out? You're not thinking clearly. So as far as opportunity is concerned, they're standing there taking an opportunity while you're not thinking clearly to sign a contract to repair your home. Okay? I wanted to throw that in.
Absolutely.
Now, to the disaster plans, we do disaster plans up and down both of the coasts through Florida for large communities, condominium communities, etc. Very detailed disaster plans. They will detail the power usage needs in the event of a storm, how much diesel we have to bring in from all over the country, et cetera, et cetera. The issue is we don't see that drilling down to the residential home. Now, it doesn't need to drill down to the residential home to the level that it does in such a large community, right? Okay, but the thing is, as Jesse was getting at, we should put a little bit of due diligence in on the front end to not only put our things away, not only have protection from missiles that in the event of a storm, but also know who we're calling on, what our policy reads, and all of just those simple things that can protect us. Something as simple as taking a picture of your rooms, okay? Having a detailed catalog of your personal property and the valuation of those things on the front end. So in the event of a storm, you don't have to try and backtrack and say, well, did I have wait a minute, did I have this? Wait, I thought I had 6 pairs.
It's easy to not remember.
And you won't.
No, not at all. I ran across the best thing ever. So if you are keeping those type of things that insurance companies are looking for, I use a company called Shoeboxed, and they literally mail me this blue envelope every month. I shove all my receipts and paperwork in there and I send it off. So it all gets digitally stored in the cloud. And if I, God forbid, ever had some type of a catastrophic mess, I would have some type of receipts to replace TVs and that type of stuff. So what are some of the questions that maybe someone should ask their insurance company? Because I know replacement cost is a big one. And we explain that one a lot. Like replacement cost, if I had to explain it to the person listening, would be, can you go in and buy, will your insurance company give you a check worth enough to go out and buy that 55-inch big screen TV that you had, or are they going to depreciate it so much for usage and age that you're going to get $50 when it's said and done to go put towards another TV?
Yeah. Well, there's some great insurance brokers and agents out there, and really at the end of the day, those professionals can answer those questions specifically. But having a basic understanding as I do with that, making sure that you have replacement cost value, because at the end of the day, the difference in price is really minimal. And you don't want to be in a situation where you're having items, whether it's your baseboard or your television, depreciated.
I know it depends on the cost of the home, but from what I've seen, we get insurance premiums back for our clients. It's usually not more than a couple $100 a year, and that's priceless. If you're looking at the difference between what it's going to cost to actually replace that item and what you get if it's not replacement.
Yeah, and I think even with whether it's renter's insurance, which is so inexpensive, or having just the proper coverages, it's so vital, because we run into so many situations to where people, they either don't have coverage or they have such a limited coverage that they have $10,000 in coverage, they have $40,000 in structural work, and what do? And at the end of the day, the savings on an annual basis was like $150 or $200.
Yeah,
which
in the big scheme of things, that's not. It's if you had that to do all over again, you'd gladly pay the $200.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just break it down in the most simplest of forms, because I know that when we met before the show, I was like, well, how do they pursue the money, like, from these people when they get them to sign the contract, or they're approaching these people when they're vulnerable? And it's interesting because you said they basically have them go ahead and fill out their credit card information and they take it, and they're salespeople.
Yeah, they are. One of the major things, and I'll be brief here, one of the things that you see in our industry is the restoration companies, unfortunately, will pay plumbers $600, $700, $1,000. So you'll have a water loss at your house. You'll have a plumber come out to the house. The plumber will say, "Oh, well, you've got water in your cabinets and your drywall, blah blah blah," and it just so happens that they'll know this great company that they'll even call them for you. And so they come out they call them out, this great company. But what the plumber doesn't tell you is they're getting paid.
They're getting a kickback.
They're getting paid. So company A, B, C, D, E, F, just so I'm not mentioning anybody that could possibly exist. The point is, they come out, they get your credit card on the front end. They go ahead, they write this crazy estimate for the mitigation. They send it into your insurance company. Your insurance company realizes that, company blah, blah, blah. They've dealt with 50 times. They know what kind of estimate they're going to get from them. It's so outrageous.
So an example of what that looks like if we put a general dollar amount on it, and then compared to what that should be. And I know you said a lot of these companies are red flags, which is interesting.
Well, they are. And there's one particular insurance company here that's based in St. Petersburg. I won't name their name, but we did 180 peer reviews for just this one last year. All right, and we would see an average savings of about $850 for every peer review, and that was after the company would make concessions based on these outrageous estimates. So the point is this: they'll have a $3,600 water damage that really should be about $1,800, but it starts out at $36,000. Okay, they'll make concessions down to where they're paying $24,000, but it should have been $18,000. Okay, but then what happens is they got your credit card. So they don't tell you that they have an assignment. They deal with the insurance company first. What the insurance company doesn't pay them, because the insurance company knows that the bill is outrageous, then they come back to you. That's what happens. They come back to you.
You have to be smart. Because this affects everybody. It really does. If you have a company that's being billed at $3,500 or $3,600, but the true, real, normal, average cost to repair that and do a good job might be $1,500, that's going to affect everybody, because the insurance company is paying out more money than they should be. And essentially, you need your insurance company to be profitable so they can pay a claim if something happens. So if they're going to have to raise rates, and it affects everybody.
Well, you'll either see them raise rates, or their claims division will have to become so hardened, because they're having to deal with this so often, that what it does is it puts everybody into the pot of, all right, we're going to take a hard approach to our claims department. And it forces them to do so, because you end up having companies out there that, you know what, if they would just act with integrity, okay, if you're going to be in business, just do it right, or don't be in business, right? You're not here to take advantage of people, and you're not here to make the fastest buck you can in the easiest way. If you're going to be a professional, be professional.
Like me, I know, Brian, your business is a lot about referability, like people that refer you and connect you because you do a good job. The insurance companies refer you because you're not ripping them off and the homeowner off. And it's just interesting, because if something happens, and just like when people go to buy or sell their home, the best recommendation you can get, if you don't already know someone or have a relationship with someone that you trust, if you have to look online, sure, there's sources, but ask somebody that you know, because usually people have purchased or sold a property and they know someone that has done an excellent job. And I wouldn't hesitate to recommend your company in a minute, nor would I yours, Jesse. I think you guys are both fine men with strong values and integrity, and I'm very happy to have had you as a guest on my show.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and Brian, if I could add to what you're saying, here in Florida, there's a 3-day right of rescission, which hopefully most owners will take the opportunity to research the company, because pretty websites or well-dressed salespeople is not what it's all about. It's about what you're purchasing, the quality of the product, and the integrity behind the company. And you've heard you use that several times, and I have to chime in because that is really what it's all about. Is the company going to be fair? Are they going to do the right job? And even if it wasn't right, well, they make it right. See, that's always the key. I wish I could say that every installation was always as simple. You take the old window and you put it back in. But in these old homes, there's a lot of extra work that's involved. So sometimes the work is more than we signed up for, but we still do it because that's a part of the commitment.
You know what I tell people directly in reference to that is we're never going to be perfect, but we'll always be accountable.
There's a lot to be said for that.
So, for us, we do, we do a lot more in disaster, just to throw that out. We're a general contracting firm and basically soup to nuts in anything relating to construction. So I wanted to
absolutely
plug myself.
and I have to also add that the owner of our company is the general contractor as well. So, which is an advantage for us because it really gives us an understanding of construction from A to Z, and it's very important when you're doing work in someone's home that you get it right the first time, so
you have to.
Yeah, but a reputation is everything. We were talking about referrals earlier, and at the end of the day, a satisfied consumer will ultimately bring you other consumers. To me, that the referral is worth an awful lot.
Absolutely. You're listening to Jesse Otaza with Rollshield and Brian Johns with Trinicon. This is your host, Katrina Madewell of Charles Rutenberg Realty on the Real Estate Radio Network. And you are listening to Tampa Home Talk today. We'll be back every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. You can catch us across the web or on 1340, 1350, or 1400. We'll be back next time, but for now, we are out.